live. This is Law Call.
And welcome to Law Call tonight. I'm attorney Chris Young with the law firm of Perry & Young, and tonight we have a show labeled, really titled, Law for the New Year. Is it new laws, new year, or new year, new laws? So if you've got any questions, give us a call, 392-1544. You can always send your email questions in to us at lawcall@wmbb.com. I'm joined tonight with one of my closest friends, but also he's one of my law partners too.
Yeah, you know.
Mr. Ted Howell. And Ted, you know, we're second show for the new year.
Yep.
We're in, I guess, what are we in, season number 13, 14 for Law
Getting
Call,
on up there.
But, you know, even though it's a new year, you still have legal issues, and some issues
They're going to be with us
are new.
this year, next year, year after.
Right. And some of the issues that we have this year are going to be new. You know, something that just came to mind. We had legislation passed towards the third quarter of last year, I guess it was. And a lot of that legislation affects every Floridian or any person that comes to Florida and gets involved in an accident of some sort. But we've also had a major storm.
Yes.
I call it a major storm. I mean, it's a tornado that feels like anything's major to us these days, right? Come through. And I think some of that new law is going to be applied to some of these roof claims.
Yeah, you're going to see what your legislators did for you, Floridians.
And I think you're going to be, unfortunately, sorely unimpressed with some of that. But anyways, if you do have questions, you know, give us a call, 850-392-1544. You can always email us at lawcall@wmbb.com. Ted, we're just going to have an open panel tonight, so any questions, you know,
we're ready.
Just shoot. So
I think we might have an email question.
We do, so we're going to get to that if we can. I think it's from JJ. I live in a neighborhood without an HOA, Homeowners Association.
Yep.
Community property was damaged in a vehicle accident, and the neighbors would like it repaired. Do we have legal grounds to get a copy of the police report and file a property damage claim with the driver's insurance? The land the property is owned isn't deeded to any individual, but the neighbors have always maintained the area and spent money to keep it up. And that's from JJ.
Okay, JJ, a couple of issues there. First, the real easy part of your question, are you entitled to a copy of the police report, or crash report as we call it in Florida? And the answer to that question is an absolute yes. That crash report, like many documents in Florida, are public records. We have one of the widest and most open public record laws anywhere. It always surprises me when we have interactions with other states and you start looking into what you can and cannot get, and it can be very difficult. In fact, it's so easy in Florida. There's a web page you can go to. I think it's called Buy Crash, and you can actually get those reports and see what that is, and that has some basic information. Everyone in Florida, when they're in an accident, is required to provide their insurance information to the officer reporting to the scene and get that information going. If you had been there, let's say, for example, if this had been an accident you had been in, you would have actually received at the scene what's called a driver's exchange, which would have had that basic information, the insurance information, the contact information, things that would let you start that claim. Since this was something you weren't involved in, you'll need to get that from the crash report, which is the next step in the process. The next and more nuanced issue here is, what can you do with that? Somebody owns that property, JJ, because all property is titled in some way, shape, or fashion. It's obviously not in a Inc. or, you know, a homeowners association would be an incorporated entity. It may be that this piece of property was reserved for the community by the original developer. If that is the case, then technically any one of those homeowners in that association could bring that for the benefit of the, quote, class of homeowners that are protected by that, so that they can take care of that and file that claim and have that property damage resolved just like it was. But now those funds are going to have to go for that repair. That's not going to be you know, to line your pockets with.
But Ted, what about, you know, we see some of the subdivisions or some of the property around even, you know, Panama City, and you're like, well, that property's vacant, it must belong to the HOA, and actually it belongs to the city or the county.
You know, and sometimes that can be a rather tall order to kind of actually figure out that information, because you can't, one place you always can start with is the property appraiser's map, and you can look through there and find that.
And they will help you. They'll tell you who owns the property and who has standing to actually help bring in the claim.
Right, but sometimes it can become a difficult issue when deeds were recorded and things, and sometimes it may be where you have to actually go to a title company or a lawyer to help you look that information up. But in this situation, I think it sounds like it's probably something that was reserved for the community, and therefore someone in that neighborhood should be able to do that and get that signage or whatever it was fixed.
Ted, let's switch gears here for just a second. New law, new year.
Yep.
2024, but we eat and breathe accidents and injuries, injury type law every day. Let's talk about auto accidents and some of the new legislation that's just been passed and how that's changing and affecting things going forward.
Yes.
And some of the, what some Floridians are going to have to, battle it. And one of the biggest things is, statute of limitations.
Yes,
and
I mean, that's one of the most basic things that, everyone asks us, how long do I have to do something? And a statute of limitations, just in brief terms, is how long you have before you have to file a lawsuit. It doesn't mean you have to have your claim resolved by that time. It just means that you have to preserve it by filing a lawsuit with whatever the applicable courthouse is. If you had an accident in Bay County, it would either be the state court, or if you choose and have the ability to, you can file in federal court sometimes. But that's the time period that you have to do that. Historically, Florida, for most cases, has been a 4-year statute of limitations for any kind of tort claim. That has been reduced dramatically to 2 years now. So that, and look, Chris, you and I know this, many times you don't know the full extent of your injuries during that time period, especially if you suffer injuries to multiple areas of your body, because anyone who's been through that kind of scenario knows that typically they won't do a surgery on your neck and your back at the same time. They're going to make you work through the different processes. A lot of times they go from top to bottom. It just depends on the nature of the injuries and who you're dealing with, but it is frequently something that will take time. So that can sometimes, this is one of those issues where the stated purpose in some of these amendments is to try to reduce litigation. It has the exact opposite effect, because as a result, we are going to be filing a lot of lawsuits, because it's not unusual to not know at that point in time.
Well, we're going to protect our clients.
Yes, so we're going to have to file.
And, we're going to make sure that those rights are protected. Ted, some of the reasons that's important is because we actually, the current law, the current law of the land right now for the state of Florida is we're a no-fault state.
Correct.
And a lot of individuals have a hard time understanding that when they get involved in an accident, because they were not at fault in the accident, but all of a sudden their insurance company's having to pay under an archaic system called personal injury protection, commonly referred to as PIP. And other states, I think we may be one of the only state, maybe one or two that's in the union, that actually has a no-fault policy, because all the other states or mandate a mandatory bodily injury coverage. Now, there's a lot of discussion in the legislature coming up, and we're doing our part to try to fight for everyone in our state to try to convince the Florida legislatures that we do need to have mandatory bodily injury.
Absolutely.
Because you can get involved in an accident and not even be your fault, and the person who collided with you could be abiding and current and not violating any laws for the state of Florida, having proper insurance, but yet they don't have the right insurance.
Exactly.
And that's why uninsured motorists is always important. So walk us through that process, Ted, why uninsured motorists is probably the most important provision under your policy.
Right. Okay. Just for starters, the no fault, what it does mean is that you do have to have the personal injury protection to protect you, but it does not mean we're not a fault-based system. It just means the first $10,000 of your protection has to come from your own policy. But as a result of us not having what most states have, which is mandatory bodily injury coverage, where everyone that's riding around legally has to have coverage to protect someone else if they hurt them, which is what we all want to do. That's why we buy insurance, is for when we mess up, we have a protection to compensate that person fairly and adequately for what we cause. But unfortunately, even if you have a mandatory system, you may be injured in excess of what that individual has coverage for. And especially in Florida, where we are not mandating that everyone have insurance. So why do we buy insurance in the first place? We buy insurance to protect us from those things that we can't just deal with day to day.
Now, Ted, that's a contract. That's a contract that we enter into as citizens of the state with another entity called the insurance company, and that's why you have to sign your name to that, because it's a contract.
It's a contract, and I'm not going to buy insurance in case I lose this pen or replace this pen. I can afford to go buy another pen. I can't necessarily go afford to buy a new TED, and I may need multiple surgeries. And I hear a lot of people say, "Well, I have health insurance, so I don't need the uninsured motorist coverage." But anyone
who's going to pay your light bill? Who's going to pay your lost wages? Who's going to take care of you if you have future damages that that are outside of just normal health care.
Right. And anybody that has health care right now also knows about the numerous deductibles and co-pays and exclusions. So there's a lot of things that fall through the gap. So, I mean, we buy insurance for those risks. And one of the riskiest things we do in any given day is get out and drive in the car, because you can be the safest driver in the world, but you cannot control what everyone does around you. And so that insurance protects, is you buying insurance in essence for those people if they hurt you, and it's not your fault.
Well, you know, Ted, one of the great things about uninsured motorists is that it actually protects not only yourself, but your family.
Yes.
So like, I mean, and I say family, you know, your resident
relatives that live with you. So your kids, your spouse.
Right.
And even I've had situations where you have brothers and sisters living with you. And that if it's a blood relative or by marriage, then it's counted, and it also follows you when you're in someone else's car.
Exactly.
And actually, it also applies if Chris is riding in my car and I'm driving and someone else causes an accident. Not only does Chris have his own personal underinsured motorist or uninsured, depending on the situation, but he also qualifies under mine while he's in my car.
Right. Kids go to college. It's a wonderful, wonderful provision that you need to take advantage of. And I say it's a provision. It's just a
contract.
It's a contract, and you need to ask your insurance agents. We take a lot of calls during the weeks from individuals who just call us up and say, "Hey, can you look at our policy for us?" We'll be glad to do that, because it's very important. Because, you know, Ted, maybe we're more sensitive to it now than ever because of children and our own nieces and nephews, or our children ourselves, and they're going off to school or they're riding with someone else. You want to make sure that they're safe and protected and taken care of.
Absolutely.
Because there are a lot of individuals in our state that are uninsured or underinsured. And when I say uninsured, they're uninsured. They may be in compliance with Florida law with the no-fault policy legally, but they're not insured to protect someone in the event that they cause an accident. So, by all means, if you have questions about your insurance policy, you can always ask your insurance agent, or, you know, give us a call at Perry & Young. We'd be glad to help you. We'll walk you through your policies and give you some suggestions. Maybe you may have enough insurance or you may not, but we'll be glad to share that with you. Phone lines are open, 850-392-1544. You can always email us at lawcall@WMBB.com. We have some callers on the line, but we got to take a short break, and we'll be back in just a moment. And welcome back to Law Call. We're taking your calls live tonight, 850-392-1544. or if you don't feel like getting on the air, you can always email us your questions at lawcall@wmbb.com. You know, Ted, you can catch us on WMBB, but you can also catch us on Facebook.
That's right.
Stream. And so we actually live stream our show, and we actually have a caller that's watching us from the Miami-Dade area, and I believe it's Willie on the phone in regards to a restoration of rights. So please go ahead with your question.
Yes, my name is Willie, and I'm calling about. I'm a felon, and my price are like 13 years. And now I had my struggle with drugs back in the day. I've overcome that. I'm 12 years clean, and I don't have any I don't owe the state anything. I pay my debt to society. I've never been to prison, but I do got felonies. Like I said, I don't owe the state any money, anything like that. I just want to know, how do I go about getting my rights restored, fully restored?
Okay. Okay, and Willie, that's a great question, man.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of individuals who make unfortunate decisions, you know, throughout their lifetime, but it doesn't mean that they should be scarlet lettered or forever barred from being productive members of society. The best thing that I can tell you to do, if you're trying to restore your rights, you know, and go through that process, it's imperative that you hire an attorney that is seasoned in that area of law. And it's going to be a criminal defense attorney.
Typically a criminal defense attorney, because there's very rigid steps you have to take care of.
You have several. You got to go. I mean, it's just the process that you have to start.
Right.
Several pleadings that you have to file, and just make sure that you retain an attorney. And when you talk to that attorney, and we'll get into this in just a second too, Ted, hiring of an attorney. Make sure that you ask them, can they handle the type of law?
Have they done this before?
Have they done this before? And are they familiar with the process? Because it's not any criminal defense attorney just doesn't do this. So, Willie, I do appreciate your call. I do appreciate you watching. I do appreciate your question, man.
Right.
But you know, not to just pass the buck, we specifically do not do that type of law. But I would highly recommend that you hire an attorney in the county or the surrounding county of where this incident took place, or where your record is. They can help you, man. And when you speak to them, let's just go ahead and get in that, Ted. When you hire an attorney, make sure that they're familiar with your process, with your issues that you have, and the process needed to help you out of your issue. And so, like Willie's situation, he doesn't need to go hire someone who does family law.
No.
He needs to hire somebody who does criminal defense work.
Right, and I know, Willie, just one of the things that typically is required is you got to make sure you've done in compliance with all the things that were part of your judgment. So make sure you have your paperwork together for whatever the charges were, and make sure that you can line item and check off what you've done to comply with all the requirements associated with that.
So Ted, you know, a lot of individuals, they're reluctant to call a law firm because they're nervous, they're scared, and I tell you,
if you've never done it,
if you've
anything
never done
you've not
it,
done,
you know, you're always nervous. We don't even like to call our own doctors, and we're friends with a lot of the people that help us out or treat our families or something, and we're reluctant to call them. But can you imagine being, you know, someone that's involved in an accident, not knowing anyone to call? And so it's very courageous, but you know, hiring an attorney is easier than what it actually maybe feel like, you know.
Right. I mean, it's like you said, it's that unknown, taking that first step, but you got to take that first step to get you to the point of completion. But absolutely, I mean, lawyers are wanting. I mean, we get into this job because we want to help people, and so and that's one of the reasons we advertise. I mean, you see us on all the different things, is because we want to make sure people know that we are available and ready, willing, and able to help them, whatever they need. And like Chris, we do this every day. Willie, for example, that's not something we do, but we every day take phone calls from people like Willie and say, that's not what we do, but we can help point you in the right direction. And and most law firms will do that. I mean, that's what you want to do, to help people.
Well, you know, Ted, one of the great things about our firm is we take a lot of calls on a monthly basis or weekly basis, if you however you want to break it down, and we want to make sure that the individuals that are calling our firm we're getting them the help that they need, and even if we can't take their case, we're referring them to the right sources, or the right attorneys that actually practice in that area. But you know, the good thing about us is we work on a contingency fee basis.
Correct.
And you can meet with us for free. And if we accept your case, you don't even have to pay us up front. We get paid when the case is resolved. And that helps a lot of individuals, because the average person can't go in and fight the big insurance company on their dime. But you know, we get paid when the client gets paid.
And it's pure contingency, 100%. I mean, because we will expend money from day one if we take your case. And if for some reason that case was not successful, they don't even owe us for the cost back. It's only, and so we don't ever get a check from the client. Check comes from the ultimate payment of the claim, however that's resolved, whether it's through an insurance settlement or a private pay, state pay, whatever it may be. And then we do an accounting of how the money gets paid out, sign off on it, and everybody hopefully goes away compensated.
Well, our job is, like you said earlier, is to help individuals. So we're very thankful for our past clients and our current existing clients as well. We do have another email question. I believe this is from Josh. Let's see here. My friend was in a wreck 2 weeks ago, and even though she had to go to the ER, hasn't done anything else about it. She's still limping around, and her car is trashed. But it's like she doesn't want to bother anybody with her problems, and is just going to eat the cost. What should I tell her to do, Josh? Well, that kind of, Ted, what we just talked about, calling the attorney and going through that process.
I mean, and that's one of the things too. I mean, problems don't just get better when you put your head in the sand.
No.
And so, look, it sounds like this friend has at least two possible claims. Anytime you have a motor vehicle accident, there's a not anytime, but typically there's going to be a property damage aspect of it and a bodily injury aspect. It says her car is trashed. She needs to get that resolved. She does not need to just eat that. Now, that does not necessarily mean that she has to. I mean, she has the option depending on what coverage she has. She can go through her own insurance company and have them pay the claim, and then they will go after the person that's ultimately responsible, or she can file a liability claim against that party. She can resolve that on day one without penalizing or suffering or doing any damage to her bodily injury claim, because you're not going to know on day one what your injuries are going to be. We know right now, based off what you've told us, that she went to the emergency room, which is good from the standpoint of that has satisfied her obligation under the no-fault statute that she seek treatment within the first 14 days. Right. Because if she does not do that, she jeopardizes that $10,000 of coverage that she has if she is a Florida resident and she's on the policy. So that's good that she's done that. But if she is still in pain, she needs to go get it taken care of, because she doesn't know what she's doing walking around day to day that may not make that worse. And the longer she lets it linger, like I said, it just doesn't get better. And so it's important that she goes, seeks whatever treatment's necessary. I'm not telling people to treat just to treat, but if you're hurt, you got to get better.
Well, Josh sees something about this. He knows that she's not getting better. But Ted, the other part of it is the insurance company is going to be reaching out to Josh's friend, trying to get her on the phone to make all these statements about her current condition. Right. And if she's just trying to put her head in the sand and not deal with this, well, she's probably more reluctant to just dismiss those phone calls and tell them what those individuals want to hear, which will ultimately hurt her in the long run.
Or maybe even take a very, very nominal settlement just to put it to bed. Right. And then she could find out, 6 weeks from now, maybe she needs something more invasive in order to make herself get back to the way she was before the accident. I mean, the latest trick I've seen is where they'll get someone on the phone and they ask them, they get their bank account information, say, we'll go ahead and send you some money now. Just sign this electronic document when you get back. And you could totally jeopardize your claim before the claim really ever started.
And Ted, unfortunately, we've had cases in the past where individuals have sacrificed what we refer to as cases that were worth a lot, valuable cases with the treatment and the injuries, and they've settled their cases for pennies on the dollar.
Just for lack of information.
Not understanding what they were really entitled to, I guess I should say. We've got one more caller on the line, John, with a family law question. Go ahead, John, with your call.
Yeah, I have a 15-year-old daughter in Louisiana, and the mother has full custody, but my daughter wants to come and live with me here in Panama City. I was wondering, she's actually scared for her safety if we file something in the courts. Is there any way to get her out of the household, prior to filing the lawsuit?
Well, it really wouldn't be a lawsuit that you file. It would be either some type of modification of your custody order that you currently had. And depending on whether it's in Bay County or in the great state of Louisiana, as Ed Orgeron would say, you need to make sure that you retain an attorney in that area. In Louisiana, because typically if they're out there and she's living with your ex-wife or ex-partner, you're going to have to abide by those rules and go in front of those courts. John, we're running out of time. We're going to have to take another break here in just a moment. but we'll try to jump back on this after the break and give you maybe a little bit more in-depth answer. But phone lines are still open, 850-392-1544, or always email us at lawcall@WMBB.com. We'll be back in just a moment. John, we're going to go back to your question real quickly. I actually went to law school in Louisiana at LSU, and I've got some great friends out there who handle that type of law. Yep. So I'll have my office reach out to you in the morning and try to refer you to counsel out there that can give you some direction and some help. But by all means, do not try to take the child out of the state without getting some legal advice before doing so, because things can be a little bit different out there and going across states. So, Ted, we've got about 45 seconds left in the show. You want to get your shout outs?
I'll do mine real quick. Shout outs to my mom up in Jackson County, my dad down in Mexico Beach watching the show, kids Judd, Vivian, and Heather up because it's Martin Luther King weekend, so they don't have school tomorrow. My cousin Brooke, and then my wonderful paralegals Trina, Birch, Chris Harp, and Leslie Phillips.
Oh man, always looking out for them. So I have my wife watching the show. My mom's watching the show. Congratulations to my nephew Nicholas getting married this weekend in Madison.
Oh yeah.
Trey Smith, Judy Smith, Paula Frederick, Miss Pam Myers, all of our friends over at the Grand Marlin. Ben Harris is watching, and my pastor, Stephen Cowell, is watching tonight.
Oh, look at there.
And we have Uncle Roy.
You behaved.
Yeah, I did behave. I did behave. And we have Uncle Roy Myers from Laurel, Mississippi watching us tonight. And you want to give him a shout out too? Because he will get upset.
Yeah, yes. Hey, Roy, I don't know how you figured out how to watch it, but I'm proud. I'm impressed.
Hey, he's learning, man. Anyways, same time.
I need my shoes too, Roy.
Same time, same place next weekend. Thank you for watching, and everybody have a safe Martin Luther King Day tomorrow, and a safe week, and good evening.